let's bring in Lieutenant General Charlie Moore, a former deputy commander of the U.S. Cyber Command, to walk us through this. First of all, General, and thanks for being with us, we wanted to point out that you joined 70 of your colleagues in issuing a statement of support for Israel, which says, to cement Israel's success, the United States should join with its international partners to put in place a comprehensive strategy to ensure diplomatically, if at all possible, but by any means necessary, that Iran does not reconstitute its nuclear program. So far, diplomacy has not borne fruit. The Iranians are still being intransigent, saying, what do you mean no enrichment? We want to continue to have enrichment, which may bring us every day closer to the U.S. jumping in. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, obviously, that's yet to be seen. I think a lot hinges on the discussions that are going on in Europe as we speak right now between envoys from Iran and some of our allies in Europe. I think the president's going to wait to see exactly how they respond to those negotiations to make a decision.
All right, so we've got a lot of U.S. assets in the region, a lot of U.S. bases, and Iran has vowed that if the U.S. were to get involved, that those bases would become a target. One of the bases that most people are familiar with is this one here, the Al-Assad Air Base, because after we took out Qasem Soleimani, we saw ballistic missiles fired from Iran rain down into that area. We've also got the naval support activity area here in Bahrain. That's where the 5th Fleet is headquartered. We also have the 6th Fleet over here in Naples, which might be in range of very long-range Iranian missiles. And, of course, the Al Udeid Air Base here in Qatar. What is your fear for what might happen at these bases if the United States gets involved and Iran makes good on its retaliation threats?
So it's a great question, John, and I think you've done a good job of laying out in this graphic, gives us a good display of exactly how vast the U.S. presence is in the area. And as you know, there's significantly more bases and forward operating locations even than what you just identified. That's exactly right. I think a component of this issue that hasn't really been discussed very much is Israel's really been going after the medium-range ballistic missiles that Iran possesses. Why? Because they can range to Israel, and those are the ones we're seeing every single day shot their way. But they do, the Iranians, have a vast supply of short-range ballistic missiles. Those missiles that can reach out to about 600 nautical miles. We think they have between 600 and 1,000 of those weapon systems. If you were to draw a line down the middle of Iraq from about Baghdad on, that's almost perfect. Virtually every one of our operating locations, bases inside or to the east of that location is a threat to the short-range ballistic missiles.
So, and we, as you point out, we have a lot of assets. There's again, the 5th Fleet here in Bahrain. There's the Al Udeid Air Base here. We know we have assets in Kuwait as well. There are other forward operating bases in Iraq, and Iran knows where all of those are.
That's exactly right.
Right. And do you think that this would be a strike as we saw back in 2020? Where the Iranians did injure a number of service members, but according to General Keith Kellogg and others, they weren't aiming to destroy that base. They were just sending a message. This would be different than that attack?
Well, I think it's an indication of exactly the type of attack they could conduct if they elected to do that in any of those locations. And it would definitely be a threat to our personnel, our assets, and the infrastructure in the region. So we'd have to take all precautions necessary to protect all of that.
Let's take a look at the assets that we have got in the region here. I mean, a tremendous amount of American firepower, courtesy of our Navy, as well as having the USS Carl Vinson there, the USS Nimitz. Will be arriving soon in what we believe is its last deployment. The Vinson was supposed to depart, but apparently now the Nimitz is going to join it, and they'll both be on station. How comprehensive is this in terms of trying to keep a lid on what Iran might do?
I think it's very comprehensive. Not only have we moved additional naval assets into the region, a lot of press has been given to all the Air Force assets that we've been flowing in the region, a lot more fighters, a lot more tankers. And this really does three things. It gives maximum flexibility to the commander-in-chief going forward in terms of what decision he likes to make. Second, it acts as a deterrent to Iran to not do exactly what we were previously talking about. And it also provides additional force structure for us to aid in the defense of Israel.
All right, so there's been a little bit of question. Let me finish you off here, and I know that you're close to the program, so I'm not asking you to divulge any classified information. Not that you would, but there's been some debate over whether or not the MOP, the GBU-57, would be enough to get to Fordo and how many it would take. Do you have any question as to whether or not that weapon would effectively neutralize Fordo?
Well, anytime you have a combat mission, a military operation, you have to assume that many things could go wrong. But setting that aside, I'm very confident that the pairing between the B-2 and the GBU-57, the massive ordnance penetrator, could do the job.
All right. Well, we'll see if President Trump pulls the trigger on that sometime in the next 2 weeks. Charlie, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, John.
Really appreciate it.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.